Hey everyone, and welcome to the beginning of a new playlist. And I just wanted to take the opportunity in this video to kind of keep it as its own standalone introduction to the entire playlist and how we're going to approach this, because this will be a little bit different to the previous content that I've made for the channel. I know that people don't like overly long intros to each video, so I'm going to try and explain a few things which will be relevant throughout the rest of the playlist, and then, as I've done in the past, we'll just jump straight into the videos for each topic that we're going to cover. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention for this video is in the background now I have the entire process of how I set up and installed Visual Studio 2019. I'm not going to cover that specifically in this playlist. I do have an installation guide for Visual Studios in my Cube Runner playlist, but I wanted to try and avoid doing that for every different version of Visual Studios, just because otherwise I'd be doing just that on this channel. So it's a very simple process. Everything that I've done to get a clean install working is running in the background now whilst I speak. So if you do want to know how I installed Visual Studios or just a guide for yourself, then just follow the on-screen prompts. I'll highlight the important things, and that will kind of get two things in one video here, so hopefully that'll be useful. But apart from some of the installation bars filling up, I've recorded 100% of the process just here in the background. So if you follow the steps that I take, then you should have a working version, because you'll see the whole process going from the download, the installation, to getting a project open in Unreal. This is version 4.22 of Unreal, working with Visual Studios 2019 to try and keep this up to date and relevant. So that's the process. As I said, in the background, follow that, and I'll cut out the installation bars. But other than that, that is the whole process going on there. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is I really wanted to discuss the approach I'll be taking in this playlist. So this is going to be a playlist for setting up projects in C++ and Unreal. We're going to be adding a lot of functionality. I'm going to try and keep these very topical. So we're going to do things like a video for line tracing, a video for overlaps, a video for communication between different classes, things like that. So it's not going to be like I've done in the past where we're making a game from start to finish. The other thing I haven't done is created a template project, which I normally do, so I've got something to reference from, and I can also show you the end project before we get started. I haven't actually done that, I just haven't had time, and I don't yet quite know what I want to make, but the way that I envision this at the moment is we're going to have like a sandbox type experience where it's just going to be a collection of different functionalities which will be quite generic but will work in most projects. Most games will have this kind of implementation, so it should be useful for everything. I'll try and do it in a way that you can drop in and out, so if you don't want to follow the whole playlist, then you can again just look up just line tracing or just overlap events and things like that. But by the end, if you did follow the whole thing, you're going to have like a sandbox of different functionalities all made in C++. So that's the second thing. That's kind of what the project and the playlist will be catered towards. And the third thing, this is going to be something I really wanted to get across, is I know that the way that some people like to approach creating a project, there still seems to be this kind of tribal, are you a blueprinter or are you a C++ programmer? I don't really care for that. Personally, I use both in my day job, in the contracts I take up. But one thing I will say is that if you're looking for a set of tutorials which are 100% C++ programming and avoiding all blueprinting, then this isn't going to be for you, because I have some issues with just C++ programming in Unreal. It just makes things slower. Generally, having a base class in C++ and exposing a bunch of variables and functions and things like that is very good. Obviously, C++ is going to be faster, although nowadays it's kind of marginal because of all of the improvements being made. But just setting everything by name and searching through the project folder hierarchy in C++ to assign references and things like that is just slower. And actually, that's one thing I've done here, is I've created a project using the example rollable template provided by Epic. And I wanted to kind of try and highlight where we're going to be splitting things from C++ into blueprints to get the best kind of flow of creating a project. So what we have here in the background is the rollable project, like I mentioned. Very simple, it just adds force to a ball which will go around this map. Now, this is all really good. This is all made in C++, like I've said, to the point where they do not have a blueprints folder. This is the actual C++ class which has been placed into the scene, which some people, this is, like I said, this is the part I don't understand. Some people like that approach where not even the classes are blueprintable. Now, what that means to me is that we cannot quickly and easily override things like the force at which this is being moved, so the speed of the character, the controllability of the character. All of this is hidden away in C++. So if I wanted to press play, test something, found it was too small, wanted to update that, give it an extra 100 units of force, I now need to go back to the rollable example class, back into Visual Studios. We need to find out where the value is in here. I'm going to override that in here. We're then going to have to come back in, compile, wait for that to compile for 30 seconds to a minute, go back to the project, see if that feels right, play it again, and then again it may still be too slow, which means we're going to have to come back in, find the number, compile, and so on. It's getting a little bit better because we've got the new plugin available. This is still experimental, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, and this is specifically if you're using 4.22, but you can come down now to live coding. Even live coding isn't that fast. You can only override variables which have been put into the CPP file, so this doesn't work on if you're making updates to the header file, U properties, things like that. And in my experience, it still takes a good 30 seconds minimum to get even the most simple thing compiled. That's the first thing. Now, the other thing is that they're doing things like to set the static mesh of the player, so the ball. They're doing this. They're using the construction helper. They're finding a uStatic mesh class, and they are hard coding this to be the ball mesh, which is in the game folder, rolling meshes, ball mesh, and the ball.mesh. So we can find that and just show you what this means if you're not familiar with all of this. So it's going to the rolling meshes and ball mesh. So it is finding that by name in the folder structure and then setting that, we'll see just below, it's going to set that to be the ball mesh that is created here, that we can find out where this is being applied. So set static mesh ball mesh.object. So this is fine. Again, if you want to do it this way, you can. But now in a use case scenario, if we imagine that we've set this up as a prototype for someone, we've been given some dummy assets just because the artist didn't have time to make the final asset, and they 2 weeks later have that available. So now again, the artist will either have to know how to use C++, come into the project, find where they've placed the new object in their project hierarchy, change the reference which is being made here, and again compile and wait for that to upload. So this is the issue with a 100% C++ project, which for some reason people still seem to want to make. Now the ideal way for me at least that I'm going to approach the entire playlist here is that we're going to come over to our header file when we can. We're going to expose these things as U properties. Some functions we'll probably use as U functions as well, and make them exposable into blueprints. But the ideal thing would be that we would come in, we can make this a blueprint. So if we find the class, make it a blueprint, create a blueprint class of this. Doesn't matter because I won't be using this project, so you don't need to follow along here. But the ideal thing then is that we're going to be able to come in, find the ball, we're going to change the mesh, say we wanted that to now be a cube, and that's so much faster than doing everything in C++. It took a few clicks. The class that we have is now a cube rather than a ball. We can place that in the world, and if the project was set up to do so, we would then be controlling a completely different character or pawn type. So this is how we're going to be approaching all of the content in this playlist. I just wanted to give a heads up on that because obviously this is going to be a C++ playlist, and I didn't want people being shocked when they do see blueprint classes being made and quite a lot of things probably being done in blueprints for that reason. So like I said, functionalities and things, we're going to be using a lot of C++ here, but there will be things like this where we expose it to blueprints just because it's faster. And really that's where the benefit of using Unreal comes from, is this synergy between sharing the logic and the functionality between C++. You can do all your maths and stuff in C++. You can do a lot of the complex functionalities in there. We're going to be doing our things, like I said, line traces and stuff in there. And then we can pass that information back to blueprint classes so that we can get those results very easily, manipulate them, find out what's happening with them, debug through them a lot faster, and just make on-the-spot changes, which is where, again, the benefit of using Unreal comes from, is because you then get a very nice, clean, quick, and simple development process. And that's the main thing, is we want to make the end project as good but as fast as possible. So that was the third and final point I just wanted to cover, just to keep people's expectations in check, and so you know what you're getting if you're looking at getting started with the playlist. And just to really like hit home on this, I was just thinking like a quickly show actually the new pawn being used, the one where we've created a cube, doesn't really make any difference. But I was going to quickly come into the game mode and change the default class which is being controlled, and that would have allowed us to use the new blueprint version. But of course this is done in C++ entirely, so we'd need to go to the game mode again, and I'm guessing, yeah, so the static class is being defined here. So setting the default pawn class in the game mode C++ file. So again, if we just wanted to do something as simple as changing a pawn class, in this example we can't do it now. This isn't to say that the example's bad, obviously made by Epic, so it's a really good way of showing the official ways to set things up in C++, and of course this is not necessarily the way that you do things in big projects, but it gives an example of the code. It's kind of a good way of documenting things, because it's not going to be very often that you see this otherwise, because like I said, it's just not the most efficient approach. But anyway, I will leave that one there. That was just a second example I wasn't intending to make, but it inconvenienced me when I wanted to show a quick demo to you guys, so I thought I'd just include that as well. So yeah, that was all of the points I wanted to make. That's going to be how the playlist is going to be set up and approached as we go forward. And the next one, in the next video, I'm just going to go straight into creating a blank project, converting that to a C++ project, and then we'll get started in the second video in this playlist. Like I said, without all of this introduction and explanation beforehand, that has all been siphoned off into this video. So I'll leave that video here. As always, if you enjoy these videos or find them useful, please do leave a like and share the video around. That always helps. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with any of the content coming from any of the playlists on the channel. And as ever, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.